coming
you
up.
notice that women are more insecure than men?
That's been your observation. My
have
observation.
you noticed that?
I haven't noticed
You have
that.
not noticed
I've
that?
noticed that women are more vocal.
The reason I see that women are more insecure women than men is because I've noticed that women, and not all, but
Of
most.
course, okay.
Women tend to try to will or force the world to rotate around them. You know, they try to make their man do what they want him to do or be the way they want him to be. Treat me this way, treat me that way. And then they try to force the kids to rotate around them. And they try to pass laws that rotate around them. And they always, you know, like
What are
you said,
you talking about? That's your interpretation. You're seeing these actions, and that's a false premise, because that's your premise, and anything that you interpret after the false premise is also going to be false.
You haven't noticed that women do that?
No, that's your interpretation.
They don't try to force the world to rotate around them?
You're asking me yes or no questions.
Yeah, right. You haven't noticed that at all?
I haven't noticed that women try to force the world to rotate around them.
Well, why do all the kids always gather around mama?
Because mama is nurturing. People
No.
go to the well because there's water there. Like I said, we are all love, and we want to return to love, so people like the feeling of nurturing.
So that's why they do it. They're looking
When you
for
want
love.
when you want some softness or some hugs or to rest upon a buoyant bosom, you come to mama.
There's a lot of talk about self-love these days. I have with me Tanya TKO, a relationship expert, life coach, and a YouTube star. You really are a YouTube star.
Thank you.
These days, people say that you should love yourself. What does that mean?
You know, that's a really good question, because loving yourself can manifest in so many different ways, from how you treat yourself, what you put in your body, to who you let in your body or in your life, in your home. There's so many different facets of loving yourself, but taking care of yourself, honoring yourself, creating a safe space for yourself.
How do you know when you don't love yourself?
Well, we are love, and when we are not congruous with love, things don't feel right. Have you ever had like a little rock in your shoe? Or
Right.
something just
Yeah.
wasn't right,
Yeah.
or your car wasn't aligned and you just couldn't stay straight in the lane? When things are not going right in your life, when things are not feeling good, when you're not feeling good, then there's an indication that something may not be right.
What do you mean we are love?
We are made of love. We are created by love. We were made to be love. If you think about children when they come into this world, before anything else blemishes them, they're vibrant and
Right.
they're boisterous, and they are
That's
filled
true.
with love. If you upset a child, even if you discipline a child, the child will internalize that and then bounce right back into love. They're very buoyant, and it's only when we start acculturating them and when we start socializing them that they start learning about limitations, and then the
Yeah,
hurts
sure.
begin
Yeah.
to set in. And then we change from these loving, boisterous children into adults that have little bits of brokenness in us, but we are loved. We're all seeking that feeling of love, getting back into love, and women are constantly searching for someone to cover her and protect her,
Right.
and men are constantly searching for the entrance back into woman or man to feel that feeling of love again.
That's funny. I noticed that women are more insecure than men. Why is that?
Well, if that's your noticing, then you would have to tell me why it is that you feel that you're noticing that. From talking with men and women, I know that issues with esteem manifest in many different ways for men and women. And I would say that, societally speaking, there are a lot more forces that are impounding upon women that tell them that the way they are is not okay, that they need to be slimmer or lighter or straighter or this or softer or more firm. However, with men, you know, there's a general acceptance of how they are physically.
Right.
You know, however, I noticed that the insecurities go across the board, and I think that the insecurities of men are never really fully addressed. And that's what it manifests itself in so many different ways: dysfunction in relationship, self-abuse, violence, aggression, traveling at a lower vibration through life.
Do you notice that women are more insecure than men?
That's been your observation. My
Have
observation.
you noticed that?
I haven't noticed
You have
that.
not noticed
I've
that?
noticed that women are more vocal. So, like how black people are rising up nowadays. People are like, well, things used to be good before. Just because you don't hear someone talking doesn't mean that it's good. So when we talk about insecurities, women are a lot more vocal about the things that they feel inadequate about. However, men and women both feel inadequacies across the board.
The reason I see that women are there are more insecure women than men is because I've noticed that women, and not all, but
Of
most,
course, okay.
women tend to try to will or force the world to rotate around them. You know, they try to make their man do what they want him to do or be the way they want him to be. Treat me this way, treat me that way. And then they try to force the kids to rotate around them. And they try to pass laws that rotate around them. And they always, you know, like
What are
you said,
you
they
talking
talk
about?
But and so all those things are a sign of lack of love of self and insecurity. Wouldn't you agree with that? Whereas men don't tend to do that.
That's your interpretation. You're seeing these actions, and that's a false premise, because that's your premise, and anything that you interpret after the false premise is also going to be false.
You haven't noticed that women do that?
No, that's your interpretation.
They don't try to force the world to rotate around them.
You're asking me yes or no questions.
Yeah, right. You haven't noticed that at all?
I haven't noticed that women try to force the world to rotate around them.
Well, why do all the kids always gather around mama?
Because mama is nurturing. People
No.
go to the well because there's water there. Like I said, we are all love, and we want to return to love, so people like the feeling of nurturing.
So that's why they do it. They're
When
looking
you
for love.
when you want some softness or some hugs or to rest upon a buoyant bosom, you come to mama.
But you don't need that after 3 years old. You know, once a kid
Who doesn't
is
need
3,
that? If
a
I came
child-
to you and tried to give you a hug right now, you wouldn't need that?
I would hug you, but it's not out of a need. I would be polite, you know.
You would be polite by receiving a hug from me.
Right.
This sounds
But
like a fallacy.
it wouldn't be from a need.
If you feel that you don't have the need for nurturing, and if you feel that you don't have the need for affection, then that could be what we talked about earlier. The acculturation that happens, the socialization that happens, and the separation that occurs from when we're children and we're buoyantly filled with love to when we grow up and the brokenness begins to set in. If you feel that you don't need affection, Jesse, I'm going to have to call your bluff on that.
So you mean like need affection from another person? Why would I need that as an adult man?
You tell me why you feel that you don't.
Because I have perfect peace within myself. And so I don't need that. When I was in a fallen state, I needed that. You know, I couldn't, there were not enough women on earth for me. But once I overcame the fallen state, then I don't need that anymore. I don't need that.
Wait a minute. We might be talking about two different things. Are you talking about trying to enter a woman or enter another being carnally, searching for something through the entering of them, or sharing affection and love with other human beings, with other energy forces? You are energy and I am energy, and human beings peer bond. It's nice to be around nice, juicy, vibrant energy. It is. Have you ever had a friend and anytime you talk to them you're just like, they just drain you?
Yeah, that's a negative energy.
Right. And have you ever been around another person that just they're so vibrant and so juicy and so just colorful, and their energy just feels so good, and you just love being near them?
Well, there is a positive energy that comes through some people and a negative one that comes through others. When you say nurturing, define that for me. What do you mean by people need nurturing?
Like a feeding of your spirit, a feeding of your soul. It's just coming into contact with certain energies is just so filling.
Can you have that nurture without receiving that from a human being?
You know, there are some people who have pets. There are some people
yeah.
who find nurturing in the sun. There are some people who find nurturing we are here on this earth for the experience of the soul. Each one of us is doing something different here. And each one of us, we're walking around in these human encasings. This is what you see is an illusion, but you can still feel my energy. even sitting there away from me. That's the difference between someone watching you, watching me, or watching someone else, or turning away from someone else, or gravitating towards another person.
How does one lose his or her energy, as you put it, or love for oneself? How is that lost? Because kids have it, then at some point they lose it.
It's a great question, and I'm glad that you asked that. We come into this world, you know, being encased in this human body is limiting. And as we learn to navigate in this human body, we learn about our limitations. If you think about where you were before you came into this body, what you were able to do before you were restricted by the laws that govern this physical world. You know, so it's like as your parents tell you, don't do that, don't do this, and you start to learn their reality, as you start to learn their cultures, their patterns, their habits, and as your parents start to tell you this or that's wrong, or you're bad, a bad boy, bad girl, don't do that, I'm gonna beat you, you're gonna get this, stand in a corner, you're suspended, you're expelled, you're black, you're a man, you're this, you're not supposed to do that, boys don't do this, girls do that, sit like a lady, be a man, by other people's perception, by other people who felt limited themselves. And so into our lives when we're children, the reason that we came into this world begins to become revealed. And that's when the trauma comes in.
So you become
the
like
childhood molestation,
you become
the
like what you hate,
alcoholism in your family, the violence in your home.
So what I hear you saying is that when, starting with the parents, when they started to pressure you to be a certain way and act a certain way, that causes you to become angry at them. And as you know, you become like what you hate, and that's what brings on the trauma. Am I right?
That's not what I'm saying.
That's not what you're saying?
No, that's
but you
not
gave
what I'm
all these
saying.
examples how your parents and others can impose on you as a kid.
But I'm not saying that that makes you angry. It
But
just
it-
limits you. It becomes normal to you, but it's still a limitation.
But it does make you angry as a kid because it's going against your natural nature. They're imposing another way on you rather than allowing you to just grow up, right?
Different people respond to stimuli in different ways. Anger may be one person's way, sadness may be another, fear may be someone else's, but these things come into our lives and we respond to them. And as we respond to them and as we begin to define ourselves by other people's standards, that's when we begin to break away from who it is that we naturally are. I can't say that that makes a person angry at their parents. It could make them angry at themselves. So each person is going to respond differently, but the result is still the same.
Do you have insecurities?
Of course I do.
And what are your insecurities?
What are my insecurities?
Yes.
I have financial insecurities. I have always.
Meaning that you don't want to be broke?
Exactly.
Are you broke?
You know what happened to you? Do you know what happened to me in February of this year when I became displaced?
What happened?
You know, it became a huge controversy on YouTube, but I had always preached abundance and always preached having money. And that's how the book that I'm writing became born. And then through different activities that happened, that which I had been repelling for most of my life then came upon me. And that's when I, Tanya, had to look within myself and say, who am I? What am I? If I don't have these things, which has always defined me, which has always made me comfortable, if I am no longer this, then what am I? Who am I? And do I still deserve love? Do I still deserve my own love? So the largest challenge that I've ever had to face came into my life, and it came into my life as a blessing because it was then that the outline for my book just birthed itself.
I noticed that a lot of women are acting in a way that they think men are acting as though they think it's the right thing. For example, they're having sex before marriage, or they're having sex with different people, or they are married and cheating on their husbands now. It's real popular now. And they seem to think that because some men are doing that it's okay to do it without realizing that it shows a lack of character and self-control.
What?
For women to be doing those types of things.
For women to be doing what types of things? Enjoying sex?
Before marriage.
Well, then that's your opinion, sir.
So do you see that as a lack of character?
I actually am on the opposite side of that than you. If a person is doing something for another person, that's a different story. But if there is a woman who is in touch with herself and her inner feminine divine, and she wants to engage in coitus with a person, then she should. I think that there's a huge problem, and even the way that you preface the question is part of the socialization that we've had, that women's bodies are somehow the property of men, and that a woman should not do such and such because of the way men will interpret her actions. Why is it that men are not more selective with their godly seed, with their
Well, they should
with
be.
their kingly phallus?
That's the point I'm making, that women seem to think that men are free because they're doing it when they're really enslaved by that. And so they go out and do the same thing. Well, men can do it, they are free, and they end up enslaving themselves as well. But I want to ask.
I think each person is doing it for a different reason. There are some people who are engaging.
It shows a lack of love.
That's your, and there we go with the false premises again. That's the way that you are perceiving someone else's actions without having enough information to form a proper conclusion.
So would you recommend to women to have sex before marriage?
What is marriage?
When a man and a woman come together as one.
Man and
under
woman?
the umbrella of God.
God?
Right.
Everybody has a different interpretation of who God is.
Do you believe in God?
I believe, okay, I am not a Christian, but I do believe in God. And I think that part of the disconnect that we have is that there are certain people that feel that the Christian God is the only God and the only valuable God that there is. So therefore, they use the interpretations that were written in the Bible, who was written by people who believed in the premise of this particular type of God, and then created all of these rules and regulations on that premise. And like I said, when you start with a false premise, everything else that you conclude after that will be false. And so for some people, if you believe in this Christian God or the God of the Bible—
But you said as though it's a negative. What's wrong with being a Christian?
I don't feel that there's anything
You're
wrong.
Like, I'm not a Christian.
I am personally not a Christian.
But why not?
And
I'm sorry to hear that.
I believe that the God that is depicted in the Christian Bible is a very violent, a very vindictive, a very jealous, and a very petty God.
Why do you believe that?
Read the stories of the Old Testament.
Oh, let me ask you this. Do women know that these women who are having sex before marriage and carrying on with different men and loving themselves, do they know that men don't want to marry a woman like that and have children with her?
There are different men out there who want different things. There
but
are different women out there.
Not for a good, decent wife and mother to the children.
That is, then here we go with the false premises
They'll do the sex
again.
stuff because the men are, really into sex, but
and
they don't see
that's
that as
when-
the kind of woman that they would marry and have a family with.
Remember when we talked about false premise? What is another way that you can see that? It seems like you have the blinders on so that you only see that X times X is X. A woman may not be having intercourse because she thinks that's what a man wants.
That is what a man wants.
Maybe that's what she wants. Maybe she wants some penis. Maybe she wants a deep down body orgasm. Maybe that's what she wants.
That's pretty clear now.